Is the basic structure doctrine a stroke of judicial genius or an undemocratic overreach by unelected judges? Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Basic Structure Doctrine, the soul of the Indian Constitution. I am Advocate Amod Bidhuri. Today we confront the fiercest critics of our Constitution's most powerful judicial invention. You will hear the arguments that unelected judges have no business limiting Parliament's will, and the counter-arguments that without those very judicial safeguards, our fundamental rights could be erased overnight. Today we will dive deep into the so-called abstraction problem, explore landmark flashpoints when courts overturn broad legislative majorities, and meet the scholars who both champion and condemn the doctrine, from constitutional luminaries like Nani Palkhiwala to modern voices like Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar. By the end of this episode, you will not only understand the tension between democracy and judicial review, you will have facts, the cases, the questions you need to decide where you stand today. Ready to weigh in on one of the greatest debates in Indian constitutional history? Let's begin. Is the basic structure doctrine a stroke of judicial genius or an undemocratic overreach by the judges? Good evening, everyone. Tonight we will confront our harshest critics, those who say this doctrine robs democracy of its sovereign will. Over the next few hours, we will explore why unelected judges shouldn't bind Parliament. 2. Unpack the abstraction problem that makes basics so vague. 3rd, examine real-world flashpoints where courts overturn clear legislative majorities. 4. Meet the counter-arguments defending judicial safeguards. 5. Review academic and global endorsements. 6. Stage on an interactive role play to test your views. 7. Survey reform proposals to clarify the doctrine. 8. Invite you to reflect and take action. Stay with me and prepare to decide judicial creativity or judicial overreach. Parliament is a direct expression of people's will. Its 543 elected members face the electorate every 5 years. Yet, under the basic structure doctrine, a bench of judges never elected can strike down an amendment, even one backed by a 2/3 majority in both houses. Recently, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar has called this undemocratic overreach, warning that no body of unelected judges should have the power to thwart the will of the majority. Constitutional scholar Dr. Durgadas Basu argued that the doctrine conflicts with the principle of separation of powers because it allows judges to legislate from the bench. These critics rest on two pillars. 1. Legitimacy. Only elected bodies derive authority from people. 2nd, accountability. Judges once appointed face no electoral check and cannot easily be removed. But if parliamentary sovereignty is absolute, what stops the majority from amending away our fundamental rights? That is the heart of our debate today. The basic structure doctrine has no textual basis. It was born in Keshavananda Bharati of 1973 case purely through judicial interpretation. Since then, judges have identified features, rule of law, judicial review, secularism and more as basic without fixing a definitive list. In an SSRN study, Akaraza documents that neither Parliament nor the Constitution defines basic, leaving judges to decide on a case-by-case basis. He calls this the abstraction problem and warns it invites arbitrary outcomes. Oxford scholars describe this as a legitimacy gap, judges claiming veto power over amendments without a clear constitutional anchor. The result? Uncertainty. Legislators cannot predict which reforms will be struck down. 2nd, arbitrariness. Different benches may reach conflicting conclusions. 3rd, chilling effect. Parliament may avoid bold necessary reforms for fear of judicial veto. This tension between necessary guardrails and clear legislative boundaries is our second major critique. In 2014, Parliament passed the 99th Amendment, creating a bipartisan National Judicial Appointments Commission, that is NJAC, to select judges. A near unanimous vote. Yet in 2015, the Supreme Court struck it down 4:1, invoking judicial independence as a basic feature, overturning Parliament's express will. Critics dubbed it a constitutional coup. arguing judges protected their turf at the expense of democratic reform. In IR Coelho 2007 case, the court reopened dozens of ninth schedule laws, many land reform statutes, declaring them subject to basic structure review. Critics call this judicial micromanagement of socio-economic policy. Parliament had protected these laws from challenge. To critics, the court's hands in devising land reform policy defied legislative intent. In 2023, Parliament approved a 10% quota for economically weaker sections. A divided Supreme Court bench paused its implementation, questioning whether an economic set criteria quota infringed the equality basic feature. This decision left millions in limbo. Our critics argue it exemplifies judicial overreach in social policy. In each instance, broad legislative majorities were overturned or circumscribed. Critics say that they are not acts of protection, they are seizure of constitutional power. Defenders insist the doctrine is democracy's last bulwark against tyranny of the majority. As Nani Palkiwala warned, if Parliament's power is unchecked, it can amend away democracy itself. Yes, judges are unelected but impartial. They swore an oath to uphold the constitution's integrity, not any government. Their democratic deficit is offset by professional independence and constitutional expertise. Retired Justice D.Y. Chanchud has written that basic structure review enforces constitutional morality, a non-amendable code that binds even Parliament. For defenders, this is not judicial overreach, it is our last line of defense, preserving minority rights and fundamental freedoms when political winds shift. Leading scholars applaud the doctrine's transformative power. Gautam Bhatia calls Keshavananda a masterpiece of transformative constitutionalism, inspiring similar doctrines in Bangladesh and Uganda. Even critics of judicial activism concede that some guardrails are essential. The challenge: how to refine them, ensuring clarity without compromising protection. Courts in multiple common law countries have adopted basic structure style tests, seeing them as vital to constitutional resilience. Without a basic structure, we end up with constitutions without constitutionalism. Some propose legislative codification. Parliament enacts a clear list of non-amendable features by supermajority preserving democratic legitimacy. Others call for a hybrid expert commission. Judges, legislators, civil society experts, drafting ministers, a model blending expertise with accountability. Goal: clarity without weakening the shield. Judicial creativity or overreach. This debate is not academic, it shapes every amendment, every right, every citizen's life. If tonight's discussion sparked questions, please like, share and subscribe. Comment below with your stance. Hit the bell icon to never miss an episode of the Basic Structure Doctrine. Stay engaged. Our democracy depends on collective vigilance. Thank you for joining these critical conversations. Jai Hind, this is Amod Bidhuri, and we will meet again on the next hearing. Thank you.